All right, so I'm gonna document some of my thoughts with regards to the Government of Canada Deep Space Food Challenge, which is a challenge under the Impact Canada website. And we've been looking at this challenge. I think I personally dropped the ball here, but this came up on our radar back in April. And since then, we have been, well, I think we, yeah, we started looking into other things. But yeah, Rushit did some phenomenal work preparing for this. I feel like I dropped the ball here. Anyhow, today I did spend a fair chunk of time here. I think I spent about 5 hours consolidating some of the work and preparing the actual form and sending it. So I wrapped that up, and I'm just trying to gather my thoughts and try and compare the challenge itself to the original Ansari X Prize. Uh, and I'm gonna try and do like I didn't prepare for this talk. I'm gonna like this review. I'm gonna do as much, but yeah, let's begin. So, what do I like about the challenge? I really like the fact that the team did such a great job preparing for the challenge. They did a spectacular webinar back in April. There was a networking event that was part of. They've actually done multiple webinars to this effect. I think I saw more than 5 or 6 webinars. We only attended one out of the 5 or 6, but it's a really well done. I applaud the team that is behind this for doing a spectacular job. The challenge details are all on the website. That's another really good thing. There is an applicant guide, which is very detailed and includes uh, pretty much all the details you're looking for, minus the specifications of how the invention that is being requested is going to be integrated into a wider unit. So short of that, short of what I just mentioned, it has details specific to everything from what the core criteria is, what the dimension for the application should be, IP specific clause. Everything's there. How the challenge is going to, like the timelines, how it's going to be assessed, the works, right? Now, that being said, when I did the form, can I share a copy of the form? Uh, okay, where's the copy of the form? I'm not gonna bring up the form right now. The form was very detailed. The form was extremely detailed. Like I said, it took me 5 hours to fill it out, and I don't think we did a good job. I think we did an okay job uh, because I feel like between April and now, this would have required at least, uh, like I would say, at least 100 hours worth of effort to do a good job for the form submission. At least 100 hours, which would have included the different components, their design, the integration of the different systems, the schematics, the electrical designs, the simulations for thermal slash heat, fluid itself, because there's a water component. The plants have to be watered. Oh, I forgot to mention what the challenge is about. Well, the name says Deep Space Food Challenge, so it's really to power the mission from a nutrition angle for voyages beyond. Uh, uh, I would say, I guess, like it's not ISS, so to Moon, to Mars, potentially elsewhere, but primarily to those locations. Although there's a little bit of a distinction in my mind because the distances to the moon are not as like they are not exactly what I would think deep space. Distance to Mars, yes. So there was a little bit of a contention in my mind, like we could, in theory, have a mission land on the moon and come back in a span of like it wouldn't be months. Let's put it that way. I don't actually know how long it's going to take. Uh, but Mars, based on existing state technology, would take a while. If it's a multi-year mission, I would think. It depends when you launch the construct, for lack of a better word. So that's one thing. So so yeah, very very well done in terms of the prep work, very detailed form. I feel though, I don't know. This is the first time I'm doing a Government of Canada impact challenge, right? So maybe they know what they're doing, and I'm not being facetious here or sarcastic. I really mean what I say. Maybe the folks at CSA and Impact Canada know exactly what they're looking for. However, I kind of feel that the constraints were very narrowly defined, and and some of the questions I should really be I should really be emailing them more since making this video. But the constraints, like, so based on the constraints that are defined, the system actually makes food uh, for the astronauts should be less than or equal to 2 cubic meters, and it should pass through these kind of dimensions. So if this is 1 meter cube, I would say roughly about double this size. I feel like this size is not enough to feed a team of four for a longer duration, because that is what uh, th- that's what the stipulations. Uh, it says somewhere here it's 4 astronauts. That's just the target. Where did that go? Fix this. Yeah, I think it's 4 astronauts. Maybe it's in the form itself, but I don't know if this size is going to be enough to feed four. The other question I had was, obviously there's going to be prepackaged food just like we have on ISS. So that food is going to last for a duration. I don't know what that duration would be, because we don't know. Like, like the big thing that was standing out for me is what is going to power this voyage. Like, first of all, where are we going? So is this for Artemis, or is this for Mars, or for something else? So if it's Moon, a different set of. I feel like a different challenge should exist for the Moon, and I feel like a very different challenge should exist for Mars. How should I make Mars? Let's make it red, right? I feel like Mars would be a very different ball game. The actual, that was too much too much Mars. The actual vehicle that would power the Martian voyage, in my opinion, would be very different. Uh, oh, the big thing is I don't even think we should send humans. So I am a what should I say? I don't want to be categorized as a Luddite, but I don't think. Yeah, sure, we did the Apollo missions, but I don't think we're really thinking about the uh, toxicity angle, particularly from a regolith perspective. I don't know, like, about what kind of testing happened for astronauts for the successive Apollo missions, and how was their lung and other systems measured throughout the following decades. They seem to have all lived a very healthy and long life. No physiological or cognitive, no abnormal. I didn't look at the data extensively, but I didn't see any physiological. I didn't map. I don't even know who all the astronauts were on the Success missions, but between Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and um, Edgar Mitchell and many others on the successive Apollo mission. Again, I did not see Gordon Cooper. They seemed like they were all of again good physiology, and it didn't look like either the physiology or the psychology, the cognitive functions supporting those functions, for lack of a better word, took a negative hit. That being said, it is clear that the regolith on Moon, because the Artemis missions are being planned, and I've already made a video about this. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen right now, but I've shared my concerns with regards to the existing public schematics for the design for Artemis, and there doesn't seem to be provisions to ensure that the regolith does not go inside the living chambers. The living chambers look something like this, right? And I've shared my kind of initial, very uneducated assessment in the video for Artemis, but it looks like pretty much like there's a staircase here, which seems a little vertical, but anyways, the astronauts climb into the living structure that they go into an area. They didn't share the designs for like they didn't do a. It's called a blow up design, blow up engineering design. They didn't do that for the living structure, but it's highlighted in that page somewhere that the astronauts would go here. That's where would take off their suits, and there's some component here for collecting the dust, I think, but they didn't share the details whether this is going to have vacuum cleaners built into the floor, or vacuum cleaners that are going to come to the astronauts and suck up all the regolith. But my feedback was really simple. I'm like, there should be an entire chamber here that the astronauts should go through, which is going to pretty much cleanse them off whatever is sticking to their boots, to their suit, and then the whole thing's going to be pretty much like a car wash, not unlike a car wash, right? But then, because we now have machines that can take pictures of Higgs boson, so we would need specialized camera to make sure that there are X ppm parts per million of lunar regolith. I'll just say LR per all the other parts, or like on like whatever is being measured, millimeter per square inch, or like micrometer. I don't know what the range is going to be. I think we need that kind of technology in order to ensure that the regolith aspect is really taken care of. So that's like my primary concern, which is not deep space food challenge specific, but that's like one of the things that comes at the top of my mind. The other thing I'm concerned about is the flights themselves, and I don't know if we've conducted enough flights in order to be able to ensure that the flights can indeed be deemed safe for. I don't know what we're looking at, right? So I don't know what the number is. So the flights that have been conducted right now are just in orbit and back. So maybe it's too early to make a comment like this. So in the past month or so, we've seen back-to-back Virgin Galactics. Uh, Actually, well, yeah, well, I wouldn't say maiden because it's Burt Rutan's design, and I would think George Whiteside and others, Loretta and others, turned them into functional innovations, and many others, obviously, at Virgin Galactic. Uh, and then we saw Blue Origin, right? So that seems like a first for Blue Origin as well. with demand. But again, I feel like that's in orbit, right? So I feel like many autonomous uh, missions should be sent to the real state of the choosing before we choose to send humans there. And just getting a vehicle there and back is just one of the many things we should simulate. We should simulate the life support systems. We should simulate growing the food aspect. We should simulate what will happen if something catastrophic were to happen. Maybe we need to send a ship there and land it there should something happen with the only ship that's going there, because you don't want it to be uh, like a Hollywood scenario where Matt Damon is stranded and the Chinese are graciously decide to send their uh, their mission there to save Matt Damon uh, from the Martian. So yeah, so like I feel like many successive missions should be sent to the real state of choosing autonomously, and that not just the mission itself, but each one of the uh, areas that will be needed in order to ensure human the life and the quality of life of the astronauts is should be simulated in a lot of detail, and there should be like hundreds, if not thousands, of such flights that should be conducted before we decide to send humans there. That is me personally. I'm coming at all of this from a very uneducated perspective, but that is my original thinking. Now, specific to the Deep Space Food Challenge, again, I feel that 2 meters per cube is not going to be enough to be able to feed a team of four. So it's going to be something that will, so it's kind of like this, right? It would look something like this if I try to, it's, no, that's not going to work. No, just keep going. Yeah, it's going to look something like this. I don't know if it's going to, no, something like that. I don't know how tall a deep freezer is. I think deep freezer is like I should have done the measurements before I started making this video. I think the deep freezer is 1 meter. So that's a deep freezer, something like that. Then this is what we're looking at in terms of the dimensions. That I had a really tough time trying to find a tool that could do what I'm doing right now. I couldn't even find code to do this on MapWorks. So I just found a picture of 1 cubic meter and started visualizing this manually, as you can see. But yeah, I feel like this is not going to be enough, and this is not. So which led to another whole set of questions in my mind, and this is why I wanted to go back to really when I draw the picture here. Where are we going, right? Because if we're going again to the moon, then I think the requirements should be different. And if we're going to Mars, then the requirements for the Deep Space Food Challenge should be rewritten based on the actual design of the construct. I just don't say vehicle, but the construct that is going to go to Mars in the first place. Because I don't know if this is just going to be a rocket, right? It could very well be a structure like like some kind of a Stanford torus or something, and it's like it's spinning and it's traveling towards Mars. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but you have this thing that's spinning, and there's going to be different subcomponents and modules, and astronauts are basically going to go into some kind of a hibernation or something during the long journey, or maybe they'll stay awake. Uh, I think NASA's done some studies with regards to longer voyages. So anyway, so that's a different topic. But like I was thinking, if there's going to be this entire construct, which is going to be like a massive endeavor, uh, then I feel the requirements for the deep space food challenge should be from the schematics should consider that possibility, and then teams should build based on those requirements, right? If this makes sense, if this is what I'm talking about, because then it doesn't make sense to have the constraints that are defined. I think the constraints that are defined are important for a lot of different reasons, because teams that are competing do not have 100% autonomy to do whatever they want, to make it as big as they want, sucking up as much energy as it wants, using as much power as it wants, uh, the works, right? So having the constraints is very good. And so maybe there are successive stages that the teams that are actually going to come out of this and do a stellar job at enabling this innovation or set of innovations would then have the chance and ability to be able to work directly on some of these challenges, if not directly. Uh, so yeah, these were some of my thoughts. My other thought was, so yeah, I really like, I really truly feel that the the requirements for a mission to Mars or elsewhere, anything that's non-lunar, let's put it that way, should be radically different. And I wanna share. I did some work here. Let me see if I can pull it up. There was actually some speculation going back 2009ish, if memory serves me correct. I forget this. So I don't know if it was an article on the Forbes, but they were this idea came up, like this question of does it make sense to have a presence on the on a lunar presence in order to be able to power deep space voyages? And the short answer at that time was no, because the short answer for that was because the distances are enormous. So I mapped this in order to be able to understand what they were really talking about. Just something simple like you see on the screen. And the distance to the Earth's moon depends, like it's pretty much, I think, stable. It's not like Mars. It's around 250,000 miles. It's like around 400,000 kilometers. Whereas the distance to Mars, and depends where exactly each one of the planetary bodies are, can be 176 uh, million miles. If I'm doing my math right again, let me make sure I'm saying the right thing. I was primarily interested in Venus. For some reason, everything's slowed down right now. The graphs should populate. Yeah, the data doesn't even plot for to the Earth's moon, because the distances are exponential. The differences are exponential. So we're talking about 176 million. Let me just make sure I'm right. When I say this, that's 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 million, then 100. Yeah, so 176 million miles to Mars, whereas Earth is 251,000 miles. So order of magnitude of a difference, right? So I don't know where I stand. I'm not an expert in this area. So maybe it does make sense to make like hydrolox or fuel in general on the lunar surface, and it's not that the vehicle, whatever the vehicle is, has to dock on the lunar surface. Uh, I don't know. I'm still split. I also don't think we need a manned presence. Actually, gender neutral. Loretta said, let's use gender neutral pronouns. We don't need a human presence on Earth's moon necessarily. The entire facilities can indeed be operated by robots, whether you make them autonomous or semi-autonomous or have a human in the loop for all of the decisions. Regardless, it's going to create a lot of jobs anyways. But yeah, I don't know if like we want to have like a human presence on the moon. I don't understand why you would want to do that, because even the distances are not immense in terms of speed of light, so it's almost instantaneous. So whatever you can do on Earth, you can pretty much do on the moon remotely, right? Uh, Now, yeah. So that was another like this is why I'm saying what I'm saying when I'm talking about where's my my image is gone. When I drew this image here, when I was talking about the distance to the moon and to Mars, right? The last thing, I don't want this to be a long video. The last thing I was thinking was, even though the team did a phenomenal job at this, how can I say this? I want to give the feedback if somebody ends up watching this, but I don't want to make them feel bad about the feedback I'm giving. So, anyways, so my intentions are to see innovation thrive and foster, and many teams coming out and amazing solutions coming out of challenges like this, and new companies getting formed and solutions being powered. So I feel like the constraints, I don't know, again, it goes back to the things I was talking about earlier, but I feel like the constraints are to, given the set of things I mentioned, I think the constraints may actually not work, at least for a mission to Mars. And I think a separate challenge would have to be devised. And I say this because if I look back and think of the original X Prize, right? So if you go back to the original Ansari X Prize, the requirements were very simple. That you have a team of 3 people that can be taken to space. Then they defined specifically what they meant by that: 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface. That you there was another thing here where you stay there for a finite number of seconds, minute. I could be wrong about that. Anyways, I'll just read what was on the screen. 3 people, 100 kilometers up from the Earth's surface, and you do this twice within 2 weeks. So you go up and down 1 week, and you go up and down another time between a span of, I think it says 14 days, right? So this ushered this incentivized teams to try a whole bunch of designs. Some of them were interesting, but the design that actually uh, did like was able to demonstrate this first was Burt Rutan's design, right? And I feel like I feel like that was missing from this challenge. Like, I don't think this challenge does what the original X Prize did. Very clear, very succinct, to the point, outcome focused, right? I guess the challenge here is because we are talking about integrating some solution. So you cannot You cannot, like I guess I'm thinking of from multiple angles. Excuse me. So you cannot just like say, hey, we want you to grow food for 4 people, and these are the power constraints, and these are the water constraints. Go crazy, right? Because this module, for lack of a better word, however it works, it has to be on board the vessel that is going to be heading towards the destination of one's choosing. And if that ought to be the situation or case, then it makes sense to have these constraints. I think. I'm not sure. Anyways, I don't know if this is useful because we didn't do a good job at preparing for this forum. I dropped the ball here. I take the full blame. Uh, and what we ended up doing was we redesigned our AMUs to meet the constraints here. Um, so I'm not. I'm not. This is not. I'm not being critical. I was sharing my honest thoughts. But I don't know. I'm still split on how this challenge could incentivize a lot of other teams to come and operate. One other thing I was thinking. This is off topic, but in an ideal situation, let me backtrack. What does that mean? So incentive price would be on like fire if the following happened, right? But the problem that stands in the way of what I'm about to say is the intellectual property agreements, right? There's a big IP factor. There's an economics factor. What else is there? There's a nation state uh, factor here. Whatever's going on between the nation states. Uh, it's these are the things I can think of. Um, uh, Maybe there's a military angle to all of this as well, because militaries think in the domains of well, they don't like strategic surprises, and sometimes they want. Anyway, so uh, uh, yeah, there's definitely a space angle to the military. The military would want to secure and make sure that it's for peaceful purposes, not like somebody going crazy. It's anyone really, a group or individual, or like a group of people. Yeah, I use the word ideal, but I don't want my what I'm about to say to be misconstrued. But what would you do if timing was uh, like you didn't have unlimited time, right? You didn't have 5 years to prepare or something like that. So in such a situation, I'm not saying all of this would be disregarded. This would be rethought in a situation like this. This would be rethought. This would be cooperative, and this would stay because no matter what the situation, you don't want fallout from whatever is happening, even though there's time bound. If somebody doesn't understand what I'm talking about here, feel free to engage with me. Uh, but not necessarily ideal, but in a situation where by you had to do something effectively, but you had to fasten the pace from years or decades to maybe months, maybe days, maybe hours. I don't know. What I think should happen in such a scenario, this is very off topic at this point. Uh, what I think should happen in that situation is I think the designs should be all put in the open source arena at that point, right? So if this was the ISS, I'm going to do a pretty bad job of making the ISS, right? It doesn't really look like this. Then maybe 100% of the designs would be put in the open source. So you'd go to your tool of your choosing and you would start designing. Um, you would start designing, leveraging the designs that already exist, which would include source code, which would include schematics, electrical designs, life support system, how they work, the works. Everything would be out in the public. Uh, that's not necessarily to make something that docks to the ISS, but that could be to make another ISS, or it could be to make a ship in the form of ISS, or like some kind of a vehicle. Uh, same for other things. Same for rocket designs. I don't know how that would play out because now we're talking private companies. Um, but if you wanted to do something really rapidly, then distributed teams are going to come and innovate quite rapidly in order to be able to deliver solutions. This is something I think about, and I've at least made 2 videos about this historically. Dynamic scalability of teams, which I've pointed back to in some of my more recent videos, and the other one I call mob programming, which is not a term I coined, but I think dynamic scalability of teams is something I have thought of. At least the thing is called crowdsourcing, but crowdsourcing is just the ability to be able to source things out to the crowd, like Wikipedia and whatnot. Whereas I've been thinking more from the domains of what happens after companies, and particularly I think of things in the domain of time bound, but also complexity, because if, or both. So if you have like a really complex problem in front of you and it's time bound, then the most logical thing, short of actually unleashing an AI to solve that problem, or some kind of AGI. Well, I don't know that's a huge, that's a completely different topic, which I don't know much about, right? Anything short of that would require teams to be scaled, humans, and like I don't know what else exists in the earthly context. The teams would have to be scaled dynamically. So you have this problem, and you want to hit it in a finite time frame. And if you were going to do it on a span of 15 years, you would do it traditionally, right? However, we do stuff, incentivize areas, and combination of basic research turning into innovation, and you've got like incubators, we've got the university system, incubators within universities, startups in general, venture capital, a whole bunch of other things. That's on a 15 or longer, or something like that time scale. What if you didn't? What if you only had like 5 days, right? So I'm not being a scaremonger. That's not my intention for this video. But this is, like I said, this is very off topic. But I was thinking, but even if it's not for a situation like this, it would be very, very, at least from a perspective of thought experiment at the very least. Like, so when we think of big, hairy, audacious problems like terraforming other planets, I don't at least think we're going to do this in a traditional sense. I definitely believe this is going to involve some element of what I call dynamic scalability of teams. But the key aspect is that the intended, all the stakeholders that engaged are compensated really well for their time. So, it makes sense to build something like this on top of a blockchain, right? Because so anyways, I'm going a little off topic. These are my set of thoughts, but I'm happy to Yeah, that's the thing.